Hi, I'm Jennifer Follett, and this is CRN In Depth, where we talk to a reporter who's covering a breaking story happening right now. I am joined by Orion Johnson. OJ, our Broadcom VMware friends are making lots of news recently. What's going on over there? You had a great story recently about some changes they're making and the impact that it's having.
Hi, Jen. Yeah, they're changing prices again, and they're sort of messing with those licenses and how partners are going to be selling those and moving those through their customers. They're changing the minimum cores, and so they've gone from 16 cores. So those are fairly small environments. Now the minimum that you can have is 72 cores, and so those are for smaller environments. That's a big change, but it's also coming on the heels of a lot of change that they kind of rolled out in 2024. So partners are a little bit skeptical and a little bit nervous.
And then in addition to that, they also announced some changes to the way that they structure pricing for customers that need to renew, right? So if you don't
Right.
renew by your anniversary date, that's going to cost you an extra 20% of whatever your first
Right.
year subscription cost is.
Correct, and that's something else that partners have not taken well. The idea that they might be penalized for not renewing a customer in time is something that I think that they kind of, some of them take it as a bit of a slap in the face to their years of business that they've done with VMware. Other people are saying, look, there's ways around it. You can just create a new account. You don't have to renew, and that is seems to be one workaround. The other part of this is that all of these changes are kind of directed at the smaller end of Broadcom's environment. So these are the smaller SMB customers. You talk to some solution providers who only kind of deal in the middle to upper end, and they say Broadcom doesn't want those folks anyway. They're a lot of work for not a lot of money. You talk to folks who kind of deal in that environment, and they're saying, look, this is going to cause a lot of churn. I talked to a solution provider this week who said, I've got a guy who's running 20 VMs. It's a small business. It's a community business. And their bill is going to jump from about $1,000 to about $3,500 annually for their virtualization environment. And they're just going to look elsewhere. And so that's where I think, as one solution provider put it in the story, that they've made it clear that they don't really want the small end of that business. And so I think they're going to let it drift.
So Broadcom might not want it, but the channel does, and certainly other vendors do. So where can solution providers turn to get these needs met?
What they've said to us is like, look, we're going to start seeing calls for Proxmox. We're going to start seeing calls for scale computing. We're going to start seeing calls for Nutanix, for Microsoft HCI. All of those environments have now kind of been put in play by this move, and there's going to be, I think, you've already seen hints of it on social media. Broadcom is aware of this. They know that their competitors are going to seize on these changes to try to create an event worth making a sales call on.
So this all actually came to light because of a communication from Arrow, which is a distribution partner of Broadcom. But what has Broadcom said about all this?
So far, nothing. And we did finally hear back from them this week. We reached out to them multiple times on Friday when we were writing the story, from morning all the way until late when we were editing it. And we did hear back from them on Tuesday, and they said no comment, and they're not going to be commenting on these particular changes at this moment. And we'll obviously stay tuned. If there's anything that they want to say, we want to hear it. We want to pass that on to channel partners.
What was your overall takeaway then, sort of the tenor of the conversations you were having with partners about this news and how it hit them?
It was a sigh. It's like, here we go. It's another difficult conversation that they have to have with their customer about their VMware estate. And I think for years, they were not used to having difficult conversations about their VMware estate because it was pretty solid, not worth talking about. They could rely on.
Slow and steady, it did its thing.
Yeah, exactly. It was reliable. They knew what they there might be a small increase every year. This has been a lot of change very quickly. And I think, as Broadcom has acknowledged, communication about these changes has not always been their strong suit. And I think that has also been frustrating to partners. And that's reflected also, in some of the social media kind of posts that you see out there from Broadcom employees trying to explain this to the larger community and say, this is what it means. And that's tough when you have that big of an environment to try to cover with social media posts here and there.
Yeah. Well, solution providers are nothing if not adaptable, so I'm sure that they'll find new ways to meet these customer needs, but it certainly seems to create some road bumps that they weren't expecting.
Yeah, some headwinds for sure.
OJ, thank you so much for joining me and walking us through the changes. This has been CRN In Depth.